every now and then I try to go on an adventure where I turn my gaze inwards. I give myself time and space for silence, creativity, reflection. And this time the journey went to Finland, where I spent 1 week mostly camping alone in the forest. And like any adventure like this, which is more extreme, more prolonged, I learn a lot of things, I gain lots of new insights. So here I want to share the 10 insights, and I've divided the insights into 3 categories, where the first has more to do with myself, the world, etc. The second about camping more specifically, and the third one about Finland and Finnish culture. So the first thing I learned, which I thought was perhaps also the most important, is that it got quite lonely being here alone. And that was interesting to me because for me, camping, being alone in nature is kind of the definition of happiness. And whenever I pass by a difficult moment in my life, I always think that, oh, if I could just kind of quit this, just spend a month on my own in the nature, just maybe move into the nature and live there forever. And that would kind of be my solution. And here I found out that even though being here in nature is I'm kind of maxing out one of the main drivers of my happiness, it goes at the expense of other drivers of happiness, such as social relations, my daily routine, work, even having a purpose. So it means, so for me, this really tells me that just going away into the forest is not the solution, because happiness is in the balance, in a sense, and that for me it's going to be much more important creating a balanced life where I can go out in nature a little bit every day, but not entirely, not as the only thing. And then the second thing, which was quite strong to me, was that when I'm camping here, when life is more simple, I also start appreciating more the simple things. So, for example, I washed my clothes yesterday in the lake with a new environmental friendly soap that I tested, which worked really well. I hope also for the fish. And then I dry them, and now I have clean clothes, and it feels so good. And it's something I never appreciate, just pulling out a clean t-shirt at home, because at home you have all these things in your life, all the items, all the internal clutter, so it's kind of so many things that it's difficult to really appreciate and even to see and notice every single one of them. So here clean clothes is one thing, but just having a hot meal when the sun comes out a little bit, it's something that you often take for granted, but here it feels so incredibly amazing. Also, I wasn't on my own the entire trip. I reached out to a Finnish YouTuber called Seve from Sunny Kind Journey, because he has an absolutely wonderful channel about slow living and minimalism. It's linked below in the description, and I really wanted to meet him. When I showed my partner Tana his channel, the first thing she said is that, oh, you could be friends, and that was way outside of my comfort zone, because since it's not something you do as an adult, just walking up to someone, or in this case sending an email asking, do you want to meet, do you want to be friends? But it's basically what you do in kindergarten. You see someone else with a dinosaur in his t-shirt and you say, I like dinosaurs too, let's be friends. And at least in Norway that kind of ended with kindergarten, but for me it was an important realization to realize that it doesn't have to. I can go up to someone and say, you like minimalism, I too, let's be friends. And it really worked, and it was such a wonderful experience. We strolled around the city, we collected apples in his grandfather's house, and we went on a picnic with Francesca as well. So it was a really good experience that I will definitely do more of, but it was way outside of my comfort zone as well. So it was really nice to have this push and to have this wonderful experience around it. And the last thing I learned about myself, which was a tip from Seve actually, was to take a woodpecker was to take just a few minutes out of every day, just to breathe, to focus, to be present, because it's such a strong tool to kind of root you into the moment. And I thought, what a wonderful moment to try to implement this in the Finnish forest. But it turned out to be really, really difficult. Even when I had this perfect moment with the sunset in the lake, an osprey chasing silently for fish in front of me, you couldn't find a stronger kind of pull towards presence. But even then, all these thoughts, all these plans came rushing into the mind. So for me, it was an extremely difficult challenge. And it made me think about the Olympic athletes that I've watched on the TV a few weeks ago, where they were receiving their gold medal, they were playing the national anthem of their country, and I always ask myself, are they present? Are they really in the moment? Or are they thinking about what they could have done better, the next competition, what they will tell their friends? I don't know. But it's so difficult, even in the top most important moments of my life. It's so difficult to be completely present. But I felt that I at least got a bit closer, because the breathing exercise truly helps. For brief moments of time, I am present, and just the calm, the happiness. Yeah, it's definitely something I want to keep working on. In terms of camping and new insights relating to camping, for the first time in my life, I actually slept really well while camping. For 5 days straight, I slept better than I do at home. And for me, it's always been the biggest reason for not camp, because I slept bad. I've often woken up with a headache. And I think what I did different this time was I had a really good mattress, an inflatable one, which insulated really well, so I wasn't cold, so I could open up my sleeping bag, use it as a blanket, so it felt almost like sleeping at home in a sense, in that way. I also wore an eye mask to keep it completely dark the whole time, which helped a lot, and I made sure to finish my last meal and not drink anything at least 3 hours before sleeping. And I think that was the last push for me to really nail sleep while camping, so that was wonderful. I also, the whole trip, I was quite close to cities, which meant I was just taking the metro or walking to the outskirts of the city. And since it's Finland, it's surrounded by the nature everywhere, and you can camp anywhere in the nature. So I was just walking a couple of 100 meters and setting up my tent. And that was wonderful, because I could do sightseeing in the city during the day, and then go to sleep with sunsets in the lake and wake up with the squirrels and woodpeckers in the morning, and it was kind of the best of two worlds. Also, the wildlife here was absolutely amazing. Even though being close to cities, I've seen so much. I've seen deer, I've seen lots of roe deer, so many squirrels, at least 10. I've seen mouse, I've seen ospreys. Yeah, it's been really, really incredible. I also realized the importance of being very cynical when packing, because this time I traveled just with my small backpack or medium backpack like this in the hand luggage. But since it was a combined work trip, I had to bring my laptop and some other electronics, which meant that it got more heavy than usual. So I think it weighed around 8 kilos, which is really the limit for when, at least with this backpack, when it's not comfortable anymore. So that means since it was on this limit, it became very important to try to kind of be very to cut anything that could be cut. So I didn't carry any water. I just got them with a filter from the lakes. My camera I was usually carrying on the side. If I could push it down to 6 kilos, I wouldn't even. My aim is not to notice that I have a backpack on my back, to kind of forget about it, and then I would have to cut away a bit more. I was also so well received by Finland that it became very important for me to leave the place nicer when I left than when I came. So I tried to take a bit of trash with me out of the nature every time. And then last point is what I learned about Finland, and I spent most of the time alone in the forest, which means that I have a very narrow, a very thin base to say anything. But for me, it was incredibly interesting to visit Finland. It was something I'd wanted to do for a long time, and the culture is similar to Norwegian culture, yet these nuances are really, really interesting. And one of them was that if the Nordic countries are known for being a bit more distance, giving you the personal space, Finland is the master of that. In Norway, when you walk, most people will either they will ignore you, pretend you're not there in order not to engage in conversation, or they will give you a proper hello, maybe even talk a little bit. In Finland, you have these two, but much less, at least what I've seen so far. But you have a third category, which is that people kind of acknowledge you, they look at you, maybe they give you a nod, but nothing more, not even a hello sometimes. And for me, that was so interesting because it doesn't really happen in Norway. Yeah, a friend told me one time that in Finland there is no awkward silence, just silence. And maybe that's it in Finland, that because you respect each other's space so much, you don't really need, you can acknowledge everyone because you know that they will not kind of enter into your personal space, engage in conversations you maybe don't want to have when you're in the middle of the forest. And yesterday I was sitting by the lake, I was eating my dinner, and then so I was quite far into the forest. So, and someone was walking down to the same stones as I were, in between the trees and everything, and he definitely didn't expect anyone else to be there. I was really so then, in order not to scare him, because he hadn't noticed me, I tried to say hello, like carefully, and then he was very startled and "Derva," he said. I have to figure out what that means. And then nothing more. He just enjoyed the view on the rock for a couple of minutes, and then he continued. And in Norway, that would be very off limits. If I was already on the rock, you couldn't be there with me. It would kind of ruin the situation for both. It would be awkward. And here, it didn't seem to be. And I think it was such a wonderful, really wonderful thing. And I think also here in Finland, I've seen more people who are kind of slightly odd, not very different, but a little bit different in the way they dress, in the way they behave, perhaps, more so than in Norway. And maybe that also has to do with there's a lot of space for being who you are. People won't really care so much, they won't intervene. I think it's a wonderful thing. And we always in Norway, we always have this view of Finland as the people all the way up there in the forest, slightly different sense of humor, different sense of, yeah, and I found it to be slightly true in this really, really wonderful, sweet, humble way. So yeah, I liked Finnish culture so much. And I would really like to go back to explore more, because it's a very narrow basis, my few days here after all. That was probably more than 10 things, but it is the most important things I learned from this trip. And thank you so much, Finland, for receiving me so well. And please like and subscribe and be on the lookout for other videos soon. Thank you so much. Bye!